I really have no idea how today's going to pan out. Could be a complete disaster.
If you haven't seen episode 1 of this series, I suggest you go and check it out. But otherwise, let me bring you up to speed. After a shaky start to my Sub-9 Peaks Challenge training block, I was left with a broken bike and injuries. Fortunately, the body has recovered well and my bike is on its way. We discussed training, but now it's time to turn our attention to equipment and my choices for this year's event. I had a lot of learnings from last year, and this is where I really think I can make up the most of my 45-minute gap from last year's finish time. Alright, on with the show.
The road bike is still in the shop. Hopefully got handlebars and a shifter coming next week. But for today's endurance ride, I need to get out. I need to do 5 hours and I need to do it off the indoor trainer. I've got the trusty gravel bike. I've created a bonkers gravel route based on a recommendation from a subscriber. Thanks, Paul. I've added some unnecessary pain because that's what we do. Big thanks to the mountain bike riders who helped me find my way. This could be a really long day. Not sure if it's boosting or draining my energy. Okay, but what we need to talk about today is equipment choices for peaks. I'm going to keep battling away at this ridiculous gravel route I've set out for myself today, but let's go and talk about gearing.
In the back half of the race, I struggled on the steep climbs. The Back of Falls kicks in at around about 200 kilometers. It's a climb that's 22 kilometers long with an average gradient of 5.5%. But the steepest section of it is around about a 9.5 kilometer climb, and its average gradient is a bit over 8.5%. But that's not the worst of it. There are sections in that 8.5 kilometers that go up to about a kilometer, and they are over 10% average gradient. I found that at this point in the race, especially under the conditions of last year, that pushing anything over 5 to 6% gradient with the gearing that I had was near on impossible. I actually had to get off the bike and walk a number of times. When I look through my progress of the course last year, I can see that I lost approximately 30 minutes on the Back of Falls. This was almost the difference between finishing Sub-9 last year. This time around, I'm going to change my gearing. I normally run a 52-36 chainring, and in my cassette I run an 11-30. I'm going to switch out into an 11-34. And the great thing about this change is it's barely a change at all. But when it matters, I will have that 34-tooth cog. The cassette is largely the same. You have all of the same big gears, and you have 5 of the same in the easy end of the cassette. The only difference is that the 16-tooth cog is swapped out for a 34-tooth cog. When I look at my usage stats by uploading a fit file into di2stats.com, I can see that I barely use the 16-tooth cog. It represents around about 5% of my usage in the big gear and then around about 2.5% of usage in the little gear. It seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me. And that 34-tooth cog will hopefully give me the ability to spin the legs a little bit on those steep ramps on the Back of Falls. The other change that I've made at the same time is my wheels. I've swapped out from the normal 60mm deep wheels that I run into a 45mm deep wheel instead. Primarily will give me a little bit of a weight saving. It might be a bit of a loss on the aero, but I hope with all the climbing in the day that that's not something that I will notice as much. I already own these wheels, so they were not something that I had to go out and buy. Would I make the change if I didn't own the wheels? Probably not. Again, the major time losses that I saw in the day were on Hotham and on the Back of Falls, so that little bit of weight saving might catch me up a little bit of time.
Now this is something that surprised me from last year, but it's just the amount of feedback I got about my kit choice. This is definitely something I have to dive into for this year.
I really was surprised how many people commented on my choice of kit. There was a lot of feedback about my choice of long sleeves. There's a lot of feedback on my choice of dark colors. This is the kit that I wore last year, so black bibs and this pine long sleeve jersey. I chose the long sleeve jersey because of the sun protection. It was going to be 10 hours out in the sun. The brunt of that is on your forearms. I was going to be applying sunscreen, but there's only so many times and I don't want to be stopping to do that regularly. I kind of figured that that extra protection is probably going to keep me hydrated over the course of the day. I even started the day with a gilet and a pair of clear glasses on this kit as well. I'll be honest, I didn't think too much about the colour. It was what I owned, so it's what I went with last year. It certainly was hot, but it's hard to gauge exactly how much of a difference it would have made to have had a different coloured jersey on. I feel like the long sleeves was a good choice, and the lightweight jersey didn't seem to make me overheat. But I'm going to go with the popular suggestions from last year. This is essentially what I'm planning to wear this year. Changing out the dark colours into light colours, so I've got white, I'm going with smoke bibs. A really big call out is I'm going for cargo bibs this time around, because having 2 additional pockets is super valuable in the case of an event like this. In terms of the cold and any additional considerations for descending at the start of the day, I'm not going to go with any. I think I'm just going to suck it up. Will I miss the long sleeves? Maybe. Getting sunburn on a day like this is the last thing that I want to happen, but I'll be making sure that I apply in the morning, reapply at dinner plane, and then maybe have something in my bag at Angler's Rest just in case.
Okay, now this next one is something I've been meaning to do for a while. Let's see how I get along with it. Okay, now that I've got my wheels set up for peaks, it's time to do something I've never done before. I'm going to flip over from using grease to using wax chains. So if I'm going to do that, I need to wax my chains. I've bought a Silka waxing system and some super secret wax. Let's see if we can get this done. Okay, so I have the Silka chain waxing system, I have the secret chain blend, and I have the really important inclusion here, which is the strip chip. This is the piece that lets you get a brand new chain, which I've also got here. It comes with packing grease on it. The strip chip is what allows you to take the packing grease off and not have to worry about diluting or ruining your wax or whatever it is. Cool, all right, let's get started. I think one of the beauties of this system is that it makes it super simple. Instead of having to worry heavily about what temperatures things are, the different phases of the waxing process, the system kind of takes care of it for you. Sounds good to me. Okay, so here we have our wax pot. Seems as if this is like fixed in here maybe. We got like a lid. I suppose we end up just storing the wax in there in between waxes. Some power over there. A couple of screws here for putting the drying frame together. This is like for holding the chain when you're kind of lowering it in and pulling it out and letting it dry. Cool. Okay, pretty straightforward so far. It says that I need 300 grams of this, got a 500 gram bag. I guess we can just top it up. And then we need 1 of these strip chips. So I've got a small set of scales here. We should be able to weigh out the correct amount. Okay, 300 grams in. Then we've got to get one of these strip chips. Some kind of magical chemistry going on in here. So only 1 of these are required per chain that you wax. So every time you wax another new chain, you've got to put another strip chip into the mix. Here we go, this is it. Here, chuck this in the top as well. Step one is that we've got to get the wax up to temperature. We've got to get it up to 125 degrees. So that's the magic of this little pot here, I guess. It's set to be able to do 125 and then the lower degrees that it needs for later in the process. Okay, off, turn it on, take it up to 125, and we let it go. Okay, so while that's melting, let's get the chain ready so we can put it in when it's ready. So I've got a brand new Shimano Dura-Ace chain here. As I said before, it comes with packing grease on it, so that's why we need to use the strip chip. You'll notice when you pull it out of the bag that it's all like greasy. So we want to link it through this kind of handle here, so that when we can drop it into the wax and move it around and then pull it out to let it dry. Got my quick links here so that I can actually put it together once we're done. The recommended length is you do about 8 links at a time and you just loop it backwards and forth throughout. Okay, we're all on there. Wax should almost be ready now. Okay, now that the wax is melted, we've got to drop the chain in. Got to try and get it in there, get the whole thing kind of covered. Might need a little bit of jostling around. There we go. Kind of makes sense if you've got a tool around that you're prepared to get wax on, just to help if you need to kind of crush it in there. Now that we're in there, it says we got to just agitate it around, which basically just means shaking it around inside the wax, trying to get the wax into all the nooks and crevices of the wax so it can sit in there. Once we've done that, we just have to let it sit in the wax for 10 minutes. So the next step is that we agitate the chain again, then we lower the temperature of the pot to 75 degrees. This lets the temperature of the wax go from really running at 125, which is the temperature necessary for the strip chip to work, down to a more viscous temperature that allows it to really bind to the chain and not run off when we pull it out of the mix. Cool, so we've just gone 10 minutes. Means it's time to do the agitating. Just get in there, be mindful, everything that's around here is likely to be hot. Couplers a little bit warm, my spanner definitely was warm, so don't burn yourself. You can now start lowering the temperature on the unit to 75 degrees. Just finish agitating it there for around about 30 seconds. Then we've got to let it cool. Once it cools down to 75 degrees, that's when we can actually pull it out of the pot. Right, wax pot is down to 75 degrees. Let's pull it out. Again, let's be careful. It's probably going to be quite hot. Also want to be careful not to make a huge mess for ourselves. I don't want to drip it out everywhere. Okay, just straighten it up there so it's not dripping. It's got it out of the wax. We've now just got to let it cool off. When the chain comes out, it's going to be a little bit stiff from all of the waxing. Here's kind of what the chain looks like when it comes out. Like the links are a little bit hard to break. So when you pull it out, you need to kind of run it around maybe a stainless steel pole or just kind of go through each of the links and loosen them up. They say it takes a few weeks for the chain to properly break in, but to be honest, I can't say I've noticed a real difference.
I won't go into the full details of connecting a chain, but you're going to need a chain breaker and ideally a pair of linking pliers, something a little bit like these. There's a great debate as to whether or not you wax your quick links or not. I don't think trying to fish them out of the wax pot is going to be something that I want to do. So you can use this chain coating drip wax. So this is what you use just to maintain the chain on your average day anyway. Applying this to the quick links is about all you're going to need. Riding around on a wax chain, I can't say that I've noticed a huge difference, and I mean that in a good way. The chain doesn't sound any louder, it doesn't feel any different. It essentially feels like I've got grease there, but I avoid all of the messiness that comes along with having grease, and it seems like it stays lubricated for longer. The positive that I think here for peaks is a long day out riding with a lot of different conditions. Hopefully it's going to keep that drivetrain spinning a little bit smoother for the duration than what grease, especially a dry lube, is going to do on a day like that.
Who am I? Wout van Aert? Okay, that's around about 5 hours and 70 kilometers of almost all gravel. It was a lot more intense than I intended, but I did have to cut it short. I had to cut out some of the West Head out and backs. Is that training? Is that prep? Certainly counts for something. What gear changes have you made to your bike for peaks? I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments, but until next time, folks, see ya!